really, because this is episode 2 of the Write All Along podcast hosted by yours truly, Brittany Temple. I am the writer behind the Substack Write All Along, and I'm so glad you're listening or watching, and thank you for being here. Thank you to everybody who reached out after episode 1. Your messages were so wonderful, and I'm just so appreciative of everyone who reaches out. You mean so much to me, so really, thank you. I'm so glad you're here and you're listening. And I'm always open to feedback, too, if you can manage to be kind about it. Please don't crush me, but I'm always open to feedback. If you're watching, you'll see that my setting is different than the last time because I'm filming this at night. I had filmed a whole other version of this and I ruined it, and I had deleted the original because I'm a fool and I haven't learned my lessons yet. As I mentioned in the first episode, I knew this would be a learning experience, and it has been, and it's been harder than I thought it was. So thank you for being patient with me. That's also why it's taking me forever to get on the schedule, and my ring light just died. I can't believe I was talking about how I haven't learned my lessons yet and my light died. Anyway, I better get talking before this light battery dies again because I only charged it for a few minutes so I can finally film this and share it with you. So anyway, let's get into it. The subject that I am looking to cover today is 5 things that I have learned working at some of the biggest media corporations in the world. I have worked for places like CBS, SiriusXM, MLB Network, Turner Broadcasting, to name a few, and I've been thinking about working at big versus small company because now I work for a much smaller company. There's a handful of us that are full-time and we have some freelancers, and I've been thinking about the differences. Of course, there's pros, cons to each side, but there have been some really big lessons that I learned at the more than 10 years that I spent working at various large corporations, and I'm going to share 5 of the biggest lessons that I learned, and this may come in handy for you if you are somebody who maybe you think that working at a big corporation would be the answer to maybe job security or financial success, whatever problem you think it might answer. You might be interested to learn what I have to share. So you know what? Let me just get started. Number 1, some faceless bird brain will ruin a lot of things for you. That sounds ridiculous, but there will be some higher up that you will never meet, but they will be on email chains and you will see their name, and they will nullify good ideas, whether they be yours or somebody else's, and they will prioritize bad ideas, usually theirs. And conveniently enough for them, they'll never physically be there to answer any of the probably great questions you have about why their poor idea is being prioritized over your great idea. I'm sorry. Also, the bad part about them is that they generally don't have any idea what the day-to-day looks like working on whatever project it is that they're chiming in on. It always works out that way. Number 2. The same year that the company you're working for reports record profits could be the same year that they lay you off. The unfortunate truth is that working for a big company does not automatically equal job security. We've seen it happen this year, and it's happened before, and it will happen again. It is, especially in the media and content creation spaces. Speaking of job security, when I think of these big companies, I also am called back to something I wrote about on my Substack, where I was let go from a company, and I had been preparing for this moment, really, and I had prepared a paper trail that showed why it would have been a wrongful termination, we'll call it, and I was able to hire a lawyer and fight the company, and I did get the payout that I feel that I deserved, but the whole experience was not for the faint of heart or the thin of wallet, and the corporate lawyers that this company had hired were incredibly aggressive and did not want to pay me, and that's the vibe across the board with these big companies. Another part to that lesson is the realization that human resources is also not there to protect the employee. Human resources is there to protect the interests of the company. So number 3 is really about remembering the machine that you are up against if a problem comes up. So if you feel you are unceremoniously fired, or there's someone giving you a problem at work, what ultimately matters at the end of the day to the people who are supporting this system is protecting the interests of the company, whether that be human resources or the lawyers, or even parts of management. You know, they're arms of this corporation, and it doesn't always pan out for the employee. And again, I wrote more in detail over this at my Substack and at the ways that I protected myself and was able to get a proper payout from my situation. So you can go read that if you are new here and haven't read that yet. So yeah, number 3 is understand the machine that you are up against and don't underestimate it, and come prepared. Number 4, there will sometimes be some very shiny perks, and even, we'll call them what they are, manipulative tactics to try to get you to be okay with sometimes working harder for less, or maybe not getting a pay raise that year. There will be all sorts of ways that they try to justify cutting corners when it comes to your pay and benefits. Some of the biggest corporations in the world with some of the biggest profits will find ways to cut corners on your pay and benefits. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles at these places. And you can speak up, but again, remember the last point that I just made. This is a machine that you are going up against. So in some cases, the squeaky wheel gets ripped off the wagon, if you know what I mean. And lastly, probably the most disappointing one is poor leaders will climb the ladder anyway, and you will need to plan accordingly, especially if they end up being your boss. And they probably will at some point. So my advice there would be to take notes. Paper trails will save you every time. Okay, so that's it. My 5 tips or they're not really tips. They're more like 5 reflections, we'll call them, that I've had from working at some of the biggest corporations in the damn world. You know, that's not to say I didn't have good experiences at these places too, and some of the perks were nice while they lasted. But if you want my honest opinion now of what my preference is, I'm not going to give it to you because I never know when I'm going to need my next job and who I'll need it from.